Indictments were finally handed down today in the murder case of Robert Brooks, the inmate who was serving time at the Marcy Correctional Facility in New York. Today, finally, Thursday, February 20th, we've got indictments handed down. I want to talk about them really quick. I want to read off some of what took place, who was indicted. There were 6 that were indicted for second-degree murder. One was tampering with evidence, physical evidence, and the others have manslaughter charges. I want to get into it. This took place today in Oneida County Courthouse. Special Prosecutor D.A. William Fitzpatrick and the judge, Robert Bauer. Now, all of the cases, all of the people indicted, the actual cases have been moved to March 31st. They've been adjourned. So I'm slightly like, it's not a, it's a moment of a slight amount of feeling a little good, but knowing that they all got bail, $25,000 here, $50,000, $100,000 bail. The fact that these guys are still walking around with their freedom is a little unnerving to me. If you're unfamiliar with this case, we'll get into it really quick. I'll do a quick recap before we talk about the actual indictments. So welcome to Time to Talk podcast. I just want to get into these indictments. I'll probably do a follow-up video when there's much more information and a few more details regarding court documents and such along that line. But if you're unfamiliar, which you should not be, I have talked about it several times on my channel. I've talked about the importance of this case as well. A man was beaten to death, brutally beaten to death by correction officers in the Marcy Correctional Facility, prison. He was an inmate there. Doesn't matter why he was an inmate, doesn't make a difference what he did or did not do. He was a human being in prison serving a sentence, and he was beaten to death on camera. Now, why the arrests weren't made, why these animals, these barbarians, were not immediately fired from their jobs and arrested, I do not understand. This took place back in December. I believe the actual murder took place December 6th or something along those lines, 6th or 5th or 6th of December 2024. And then Letitia James actually released the body cam footage that details the actual beating, the murder, sometime around Christmas. So December 24th or somewhere around there is when we actually got the body cam footage, and that was available for us to all witness. So I have been waiting 2 months, and I have been saying relentlessly on my channel that I don't understand why this is not making much more news. I mean, this was not a simple case of another black man who got pulled over, let's just say, anywhere in the United States of America. And somehow there was a shooting, and the officers reached for their gun, and they thought the suspect might have been reaching for a gun, and there was some confusion. And being a law enforcement officer is a hard job, and sometimes we don't know what's going on. We're not in the shoes of the officer. Not all cops are bad. This wasn't one of those cases. This wasn't a situation where we needed to figure out and get the details of what took place before we could charge somebody. We had body cam footage of these animals beating a man to death on camera. And it's taken 2 months before we finally got indictments. Let's get into the actual indictment. So we've got Officer Anzalone. Sorry, I don't have his first name. I don't have that yet. Anzalone, murder 2. Correction Officer Farina, murder 2. Correction Officer Matthew Gallagher, murder 2. David Walters, manslaughter 2. Christopher Walrath, who's represented by a public defender, murder 2. Michael Fisher, also represented by a public defender, murder 2 and manslaughter 2. Nicholas Gentile, this is the one that was charged with tampering with physical evidence, which in New York State law is not even eligible for bail. So he was released on his own recognizance. I'm not sure how that works with tampering with physical evidence. I'm assuming he tried to cover up, either delete video footage in the actual prison itself, in the room where Robert Brooks was beaten, where he was murdered, or he messed with logs or some sort of documents that showed what took place. But either way, I find him equally as guilty. So how he got tampering with physical evidence, I'm not really sure. David Kingsley, murder 2. And manslaughter 2, and Sergeant Michael Madshaw, manslaughter 2. There's supposed to be another sergeant. I believe there were 2 sergeants in the room, but I'm not sure what happened there. Like where I think there's another person that, because there's a redacted in the actual indictment, and when it was handed over to the attorneys and public defenders for these different animals, there's a redacted name. And I think it might be somebody who made some sort of a plea bargain or did something. I'm not really 100% sure. I will get back to you once we have the details on that. But this was disgusting to watch because, and the PD, I just want to make a quick note about the public defender. If you get a chance to see this video, the public defender was some overweight, nasty, pasty-faced woman who found it fun to be in court today with this. Mind you, the family of Robert Brooks being in the back of the courtroom, you've got this woman as a public defender smiling, giggling, cheesing for the camera. Like, what is this? This is not a fun day at Great Adventure. This is she's no sense of decorum whatsoever. I found that really despicable and disgusting. But yeah, this is where we're at. Now, if we talk about, I want to quickly discuss manslaughter versus murder 2 versus manslaughter in New York State, because there are slight differences, and I believe for manslaughter, it's reckless. So it's reckless endangerment, right? So if you were reckless in your behavior and it results in the death of somebody, then it's a manslaughter charge. If you have intent, it becomes murder. So it's going to be tricky here because now I would say that they all murdered this man, but I just want to be clear that you can see where the defense is going to go here. They're going to make the idea that if you're charged with murder 2, they'll get a lesser charge of manslaughter because it was just reckless. They beat a guy. They didn't know they were going to kill him, but he died. So that's what they're going to go for, as opposed to they intentionally killed him. Now, I would argue the fact and say, and again, I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not a defense attorney. I'm not an attorney whatsoever. My take on it is, while you were doing what you were doing in the particular state of mind that you were, and being a correction officer and having a certain amount of knowledge when it comes to how to handle inmates and the fact that this guy was in handcuffs, I could make the case that there was intent to kill this man or to have a total disregard for his life, which is not the same thing as being reckless. Being reckless is, okay, I'm throwing some things around. I hit something, somebody got hit. I wasn't paying attention. My reckless behavior caused that accident or that death. That's being reckless. Having someone in handcuffs and physically punching, kicking them, their neck, their back, their groin area, there's an intent there. There's a total disregard for life, which, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty synonymous with an intent. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out. I want to get more details on this. I want to see. I'm still shocked by the lack of coverage. I'm shocked at myself because the last video I did on Robert Brooks was 3 weeks ago. And I made it a point on my channel. If you look at my Robert Brooks videos, you go back and look at the history when I first found out about this case and how appalled I was at it. I said that this should be, foremost, like up front and center for most of these videos. And I found it rather just, I don't know. I found it appalling that my brothers and sisters on this particular platform on YouTube or anywhere who have much larger platforms than I do, much larger audiences, who are much more established in this space, have not reported on, haven't done a single thing to follow up on this. And I really just point out, I have pointed out names. I've done it on my X account. I'm not going to do it again, but I've just found it sickening that my black brothers and sisters in particular have not really made it their business to continue with this case. They followed up on Gaza, which obviously the genocide in Gaza, we should continue to report on. They follow up on Drake and Kendrick beef, multiple videos on Drake and Kendrick Lamar, yet have totally skipped that a black man, was beaten to death on camera and no one was arrested for 2 months. Like, they haven't said a word, almost as if this was some small, tiny little thing in the Midwest somewhere that no one's going to pay attention to. I found it despicable. And you know who you are if you're watching. I doubt you're watching, but again, I've called these people out on my X platform. If you want to go on my X platform, you can go on my page there. You can check it out. Anyway, I will do another follow-up video to this. And when there's a few more details, just to analyze this, maybe do a live, maybe have some comments and people, whatever. But I'm slightly, I feel a little better that this has happened. But the fact that these guys are walking around, they made bail, $25,000 here or there, they made bail, and the one guy's walking around, released, ROR. I'm just really, I don't get it. I don't get it. Time to Talk podcast. Leave comments below if you watch the actual indictments, what you think about the Robert Brooks case, what your thoughts are, and subscribe if you've not yet subscribed, and like the video on the way out. Again, I will follow up on this. I'll see you in the next Time to Talk podcast. Peace.